I fear some young persons, through a vain curiosity to know their future condition, have tampered with the devil's tools, so far that hereby one door was opened to Satan to play those pranks, anno 1692. I knew one of the afflicted persons who, as I was credibly informed, did try with an egg and a glass to find her husband's future calling, till there came up a coffin, that is a spectre in likeness of a coffin, and she was afterward followed with diabolical molestation to her death, and so died a single person. A just warning to others to take heed of handling the devil's weapons, lest they get a wound thereby. John Hale, A Modest Inquiry into the Nature of Witchcraft. This is The Thing About Salem, and I'm Josh Hutchinson.
And I'm Sarah Jack. Today, we're talking about Salem's oomancy, a form of divination our Salem ancestors were warned about. But here's the thing, divination isn't just a mysterious, ancient practice, it's something you're probably already doing without realizing it. Listen today to see if I'm right about that. Greek for divination, oomancy, as reported in Salem, involved an egg in a glass. Where did divination come from?
Divination traditions emerged independently around 4000 to 3000 BCE, according to the dating of source materials, suggesting that seeking divine guidance through physical signs represents a fundamental human response to uncertainty that developed alongside early civilizations and religious thought.
A late Neolithic sheep or small deer scapula from Inner Mongolia with intentional burn marks dated 3321 calendar years BCE may be the earliest divination object recovered.
Liver divination stands in the historical record as one of humanity's oldest documented practices, with evidence reaching back approximately 6,000 years ago to the 4th millennium BCE in ancient Mesopotamia, where priests first began systematically examining animal livers to divine the will of the gods.
And here's a liver. I'm just kidding. A 5th century court document from August 22nd, 449. That's quite a bit ago. There's a court document telling the story of Sophronius, a Christian bishop accused in court of practicing various forms of divination during his trial at the Robber Council of Ephesus, including philomancy, which is divination by gazing into bowls, triromancy, divination by cheese, and oomancy, divination by eggs, and employing a young boy as a medium to see visions in oil and water. This case is ancient, but it shows how divination was a living tradition, seamlessly blending with Christian elements, even in the 5th century, as religious authorities condemned such practices as demonic. Divination has continued to flourish at all levels of society, demonstrating that enduring human desire for a glimpse beyond the present moment through time-tested magical arts.
And oomancy wasn't the only divination method accounted for in the records of the Salem witch hunt, because we have records showing that Mary Warren accused a Henry Salter of doing witchcraft by a method known as the key and Bible, and another method called the sieve and scissors, which was apparently fairly popular because Sarah Hawkes was also accused of using the sieve and scissors, and she confessed that this last spring, after she had turned the sieve and scissors, the devil came to her.
Rebecca Johnson Sr. said her daughter, Rebecca Johnson Jr., turned the sieve to know whether her brother-in-law was alive. Joanna Johnson had married Moses Haggett in 1671, so Rebecca Jr. was his sister-in-law. And this is the record. She denied what she was accused of, but she acknowledged the turning of the sieve in her house by her daughter, whom she desired to try if her brother Moses Haggett was alive or dead. And if the sieve turned, he was dead. And so the sieve did turn. And my daughter said that Mr. Bernard's maid told her the way. Their words used were, by St. Peter and St. Paul, if Haggett be dead, let the sieve turn around. And so it did. And I want to point out that if you go back up to the early case from 449, that divination they were doing, they were checking on the location of that bishop's son in his travels.
Wow. So it comes back around. People using magical techniques for very common purposes across more than 1,200 years. So, yeah, it's interesting. And there were a couple people who were accused of telling fortunes. Samuel Wardwell actually admitted telling fortunes. He said he used to be much discontented that he could get no more work done and that he had been foolishly led along with telling of fortunes, which sometimes came to pass.
And John Hale testified that Dorcas Hoar also told fortunes. He said that for several years, formerly were stories told, so she had a reputation, concerning Dorcas Hoar, her being a fortune teller, and yet she had told her own fortune that she should live poorly, so long as her husband William did live, but yet said will die before her, and after that she should live better. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. She also was in other people's spouse dying business and told the fortune of Ensign Corning and his wife who should die first. And she had a fortune telling book.
And Joseph and Deborah Morgan stated that Dorcas Hoar told fortunes at their house. The deposition of Joseph Morgan, aged about 46 years or thereabouts, testifieth and saith that Goody Hoar, being at my house, did pretend something of fortune telling, and there said that I should die before my wife. So this was her habit of insisting that the men would die before the wives, and that my eldest daughter should not live to be a woman. Wow, that's brutal. Ephraim Foster testified against Samuel Wardwell. He said that he heard Samuel Wardwell, the prisoner now at the bar, tell my wife that she should have 5 girls before she should have a son, which thing is come to pass. So he got this one right. And I heard him tell Dorothy Eames her fortune. And Ephraim wasn't the only person testifying against Samuel Wardwell about this fortune telling. Abigail Martin testified that Samuel Wardwell told John Farnham and James Bridges their fortunes. She said, Samuel Wardwell being at my father's house with John Farnham, I heard said John Farnham ask said Wardwell his fortune, which he did, and told him that he was in love with a girl, but should be crossed, and should go to the southward, which said Farnham owned to be his thought. And further I heard him tell James Bridges his fortune, that he loved a girl at 14 years old, which said Bridges owned to be the truth, but could not imagine how said Wardwell knew, for he never spoke of it. John Bridges, father of said James Bridges, saith he heard James say, I wonder how Wardwell could tell so true. And then Thomas Chandler said that he often heard Samuel Wardwell tell young people their fortunes. So John Hale said that going to the devil was inviting him into the community to wreak havoc, and that's what led to the witch trials. And it's very similar to what Samuel Parris had said after the baking of the witch cake, when he said that the devil hath been raised amongst us and his fury is so terrible. So we have these two ministers both saying basically the same thing, that using any form of magic was diabolical, and using it invited the actual devil, Satan, who walked around flesh and bones among these communities, inviting him in.
So who was Reverend Hale talking about?
The biggest clue in there is that he says that the girl died. Hale himself died in 1697, and that's also when he completed his book. So the person must have died between 1692 and 1697. There's a few people that might fit the bill, but we're not actually so sure, because people like Susanna Sheldon and Mary Warren and Abigail Williams, they disappear from the records after the Salem Witch Trials, and nobody knows what became of them. But there were a number of afflicted people, and he could have been referring to any number of them. We do know that he's not talking about Betty Paris, because she lived into the 1760s. So we know she's accounted for. But the other afflicted people, we don't have so much information about that.
And this is one of those myths, the circle of girls. And it's a story that has been included in a lot of portrayals of the teens and the afflictions, that they were gathering together. Sometimes it's told with Tituba, as you can see. Hale isn't mentioning Tituba there at all. And one of the ways this myth developed was from Charles W. Upham and his 1867 book, Salem Witchcraft. But I've read it in other books in that same era too, this circle of girls. And that's just lore. So I thought it'd be fun to also just share some other divination terms other than oomancy. Here's several, but there's way more. There's way more than this. And once you get started reading these, you just want to keep thinking about all the other mancy that are out there. The first one's bibliomancy, which is the divination by books or by verses in the Bible.
And then there's gyromancy, by walking in a circle until felled by dizziness. The divination is based on the point of falling.
Cartomancy, by playing cards. From tarot to regular playing cards. This is still very popular.
Oneromancy is by dreams.
Tyromancy, by means of cheese.
Ceromancy is from the figures produced by dropping melted wax into water. So very much like the egg in oomancy, just using wax. And we also had heard earlier in the episode about oil in water. So there's a lot of these water-based methods.
Ornithomancy is by means of flight and cries of birds.
Ambulomancy is by walking. The path you unconsciously choose and the obstacles you encounter are all signs to be interpreted.
Ichthyomancy is by the means of heads or entrails of fishes.
Alluromancy is divination by means of meal or flour.
Meteoromancy, observing meteors.
Photomancy is by means of ashes, reading patterns in fireplace ashes or incense remains to understand what's coming next.
So do you agree with me? Have things really changed? Aren't we creatures of habit? We scroll through TikTok, searching for meaning and coincidences. We're still doing what humans have always done, trying to read the future and the patterns around us, one cracked egg at a time.
What's remarkable is how many of these methods people still use today, sometimes without even realizing it, whether it's reading tea leaves, interpreting dreams, or feeling guided by the flight of birds. Many practitioners rely on these techniques as ways to make important life decisions. The human desire to find meaning and direction in the world around us has created this rich tapestry of divination methods.
Come chat with us about oomancy on Patreon. It's free to join. Send us a message. Say you're there. We want to say hi.
Go to patreon.com/aboutsalem.